Hello and welcome to Making Sales Social Live. Excited to be here with my friend Stan Robinson Jr. Hi, Stan.
Hey, Bren, how you doing?
I'm great, and I am so excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is 8 stages for rolling out a social selling program. So let's talk about why we're talking about it. We work with companies all the time, often that have sales navigator licenses with folks that are just not getting the most out of their sales navigator licenses. They're not optimizing it. And traditionally, it's because they bought the licenses, they went through sales navigator training and said, okay, guys, have fun. And training alone and a tool alone, or a tool plus training alone, just doesn't work. So, what we're going to talk about today is what we do when we bring companies through sort of an onboarding of what does a successful social selling program look like? What is encompassed in that? So, we're going to jump in and go through all 8 stages today. I'm going to start, and then I'm going to just throw it to you, Stan, just for your thoughts and insights and why it's important, or whatever additional fabulousness you have to add to this. So, as we're getting started, the first one is establishing goals and KPIs. So, this is really important. When we talk with sales leaders, so many folks they've got their goals and their KPIs for sales as a whole. They might be measuring outbound email responses, outbound calls, how many appointments are made, how many appointments are kept. I mean, there are so many KPIs for sales, yet very few actually add in or align KPIs with their social selling efforts. So the first thing we want to look at before we roll out any LinkedIn social selling program is what KPIs are important to meet the sales goals of the department of the company. So we want to start with, here are the sales goals that we want to achieve. Some have weekly goals, some have monthly goals, some have quarterly goals, and we'll even look at the full year, although typically, the weekly, monthly, quarterly goals are going to lead to that annual goals. But then we want to look at what activities should we be doing in LinkedIn in Sales Navigator to work toward those goals? And are we measuring those in our CRM? So I'm going to throw that to you, Stan, to add to that.
Yep, great. Because one of the things that we find that trips people up, as Bryn said at the beginning, is kind of bring in LinkedIn or Sales Navigator training on the side without integrating it into the sales sequence as a whole. And then it just becomes another thing to do, and it gets quickly forgotten because there's no behavior change. So what we're talking about here is, how do you build in these tools to your sales sequence? And then how do you measure, track, reward people for doing things right, and so forth? So I'll toss it back to you, Brent.
Yeah, perfect. So the next one is buyer mapping. And buyer mapping can show up in a couple of different ways, many different ways, more than a couple. So buyer mapping could be based on a geographic territory. It could be based on industry. It really could be based on roles. So buyer mapping is not just who are my buyers, with the 6.8 decision makers in every complex deal, right? Or now I think it's even more. But it's also by account. So buyer mapping, account mapping, buyer mapping, geographic mapping, so that everyone on your team can clearly build a list of prospects and opportunities that best match their territory management program, right? Now there are some cases, Stan, where they're account-based sales and they've just been given, 35 accounts that they have to work. So that's a little bit of a different way. But that's why as you're rolling out a program, that every sales rep understands how to buyer map to the best of LinkedIn's filters.
Yes, and a lot of this, it will work in LinkedIn, even if you don't have Sales Navigator. Obviously, Sales Nav is much more powerful, but a lot of the same principles still apply.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Yeah, because most of the time when we're going into a company, they do have Sales Navigator licenses, but I don't want to make up a percentage, but there is a percentage of companies where we do full-on training in the free LinkedIn. And so all of this still applies. You are limited some with the buyer mapping in ways that you may not be able to find as pinpointed of a list. But even in the free, there's pretty good search ability, even in trying to find accounts that meet your criteria. So I think that's great. So number 3 is aligning your tool stack. So this is something that very few companies really think about when they roll out Sales Navigator. Well, and the one thing they do think about is if they have a compatible CRM, they will almost always link Sales Navigator to their CRM. But if you have other tools, if you have marketing tools, if you have amplification tools, if you have sales cadence sequence campaign tools like a Sales Loft or something like that, you want to make sure that everything that you are asking your sales team to do is aligned with the tools that you're giving them, that you're providing with them. You don't want your social selling program or your LinkedIn outreach to be siloed from the daily tasks that you're asking them to do. So I will throw that to you, Stan.
Yep, so true. A lot of what we're talking about is just making sure that everything works together and that you can track activity in these tools as well, so that you can actually measure the KPIs that we talked about at the outset.
Love that. Absolutely love that. The next one, number 4, is content strategy. Mm-hmm. Now, this has a lot of layers, and we're not going to go deep into it today. But the very first thing we do when we start focusing on content strategy inside of a company is we have a deep dive with marketing. So this is where marketing can truly deeply support the sales team based on content that will help them to start trust-based conversations. Now, there is content that can be used all the way throughout the sales process. And often marketing has a really good handle on some of that content. But, there is specific insights that we believe works really well on LinkedIn. So the top of the funnel, start the conversation content, having content to help your champion get buy-in from other people inside the organization, content that will help your buyer overcome objections before they even happen. So there is a lot of content in the sales process that can be very helpful. And so we like to make sure that we are aligning what marketing is doing and what sales really needs on LinkedIn. When we are working with teams that have Smart Links, which is a content hub that comes with your enterprise or your company-wide Sales Navigator license, we want to make sure that we have the content to build out those hubs for the sales folks so that they're getting the most out of them. And the insights you can get from these, you see who clicks through, who downloads, how long they're there. It's really powerful. So we want to make sure that we've got that right content strategy in place. I will throw in, although we're not going to talk a lot about this today, there's also a lot of engagement strategy that happens. But from a kind of content that salespeople need, Stan, what would you add to that?
That was pretty comprehensive. The one thing that comes to mind is sometimes, depending on the orientation of the marketing department, just helping them think through the categories of sales enablement content rather than the traditional promotional marketing content that they may be used to.
Oh, I love that. Can you go a little deeper in sales enablement content?
So you mentioned top of the funnel, which marketing is used to, but then content that actually helps a champion sell your solution internally, because you cannot be in all their internal discussions as a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to help them by providing content that they can basically use for talking points internally, a lot of times to sell some of your solutions internally. Further down the funnel, case studies.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in the process of choosing between or building a business case that relates to your solution.
I love that. And that makes me think about different hubs of content for different buyers. The CFO is more interested in one thing than a CMO may be, or than a sales leader. So yeah, I love that. Ooh, you have my wheels going. Number 5 is customized playbook. So this is what we know. If there is not a playbook, whether it is a digital playbook inside of a cadence tool like a SalesLoft or a Gong or any of your cadence tools, or it is a physical playbook. I mean, we have a client where we have a playbook literally printed professionally, because and they have a physical. They're bankers and they like physical books, right? And that's what they use. But they need to know what to do and how to do it. And our playbooks for companies include screenshots and step by step, because they need salespeople typically need a visual. Where do I have to do? Where do I have to go? What should I be saying? What is my message? In some cases, in fact, we have prompts that they can use in Copilot, that, or in whatever LLM they're using. Usually, if they're a company, they're in Copilot, right? And so, what do I use? And this goes all the way through pre-call planning. So it's not just the top of the funnel, but now I've got an appointment. How do I pre-call plan? What are the discovery questions that I need that I can customize to based on their LinkedIn profile, right? So we're still using LinkedIn for all that planning. Anything you want to add to the custom playbook there, Stan?
Just that the playbook helps to push the easy button for the sales team. The less that they have to think about, the better, so that they can focus on the sales process rather than where do I look for this information or what do I say.
I love that. So the next piece is value-centric profile. This is where we move the profile from a resume to a resource. This is so important in today's digital world. This is your landing page. If you show up as a salesperson with your resume that you're a great negotiator and you make President's Club every single year, that is not going to encourage your buyers to want a conversation. But if you're showing up as a resource, it is. Now, generally, this is something that we will do pre-training, especially if we're training in person, because this is now your profile. If you have a customized prompt for your company and it asks questions from each individual rep, we can now in under 2 hours customize every single profile that keeps the brand voice and illuminates the individual voice at the same time without having to teach it. That's, that's the big thing. It's not about teaching the profile anymore. It's taking them through AI to write the profile. It is very time saving, and there's really no need to teach profile in depth anymore, just from a mindset perspective and making that shift. And then here are the prompts to do it. I'm going to move on. I don't know if you want to add anything to the profile, but I think the next thing is social selling training, and why it now happens in step 7, right? Often people think training is step 1.
Right.
But, step 1 through 6 were establishing your goals and KPIs, your buyer mapping, you're aligning your sales stack, your tool stack, content strategy, your custom playbook. Now you roll out prompts that are custom prompts for your sales reps to update their profiles. And by the way, marketing will have given you banners after they've worked with us to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let you jump into the social selling training. Why is it so important at this step now that we didn't roll it out too soon? And what goes into really good social selling training?
Yep. So that's where we actually get into the tools and how to use them as part of the sales process. So exactly where within each stage of the sales process, these tools can help move it further. And as you said, Brent, it's so critical that this is not what we lead with, but there's a lot of preparation that precedes this so that they can get the most out of the sales training.
Yeah, no, I love that. And there's a few things I want to throw into this. Number one of the mistakes that folks make when they roll out a social selling program, a LinkedIn program, and they only use LinkedIn's training, which, by the way, is great for 101 basic, but they only teach Sales Navigator. And Sales Navigator, while it is an awesome tool, is not all encompassing. There are a lot of things that salespeople need to understand inside of the free account. So, not just getting their profile set up, but, who's viewed your profile is only available in the free. I mean, you may get a notification in Sales Navigator that a saved lead visited your profile, but if they're not a saved lead, you're not notified. So you could have people visiting your profile that you're unaware of. Accepting connection requests is only available in the free LinkedIn. So you might say, well, that's so easy. They can just accept. Well, we need to send custom messages. We don't want to just collect connections. We want to start conversations with them. So they need to know how to do that. The other piece is, how do you customize a feed, not just based on saved leads and accounts, but based on industry or based on just all your first degree connections? I mean, there's so many different things, and even notifications are different. So social selling training needs to encompass the free LinkedIn, and if they're Sales Navigator as well. The other piece of this is that training needs to be specifically workshop driven. So it's not just how do you do this, but let's do this together. So that in each training, they are working on their personas, and they're getting those done. They're working on their saved lists, accounts, and leads. They're understanding how to build out a buyer map inside of a company page. So there's so many different elements in training that it's not just about training, but it's about doing, right? It's a workshopping. So yeah. And the last one is, training alone isn't enough. As a training company, you would think we'd say, yeah, now you're good to go. But what we know is it's just not enough. We've got to measure and coach for improvement. So measuring is going to come from your KPIs, from really taking a look at what's working, what's not working, what do we need to stop doing, start doing, and continue doing. And that all comes out of coaching. And coaching, while can happen internally, should also be included in any training that a company rolls out. And there should be a lot of access to coaching. And it doesn't have to be one-on-one. It could be group coaching. And it shouldn't always be mandatory. And I know there may be some mandatory coaching that people attend, but there should be an on-demand coaching where someone can jump in, ask a question, and leave. When there's mandatory coaching for an hour a week, which happens with some companies, sales folks will stop listening. Maybe they show up and they're doing emails in the background. What they really need is on-demand coaching. And it's, when that there's an opportunity to pop in, here's my exact challenge. I need help. I want to share my screen. Or if I'm sitting with a leader in an office, I want to sit with you and go through exactly what I'm going through and tell you exactly where I'm stumped. I'm getting ghosted by a company, or my champion just left this company. What do I do? Right? Like, there are so many situational things that happen that can never be covered in a training. And so that coaching needs to happen. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, the coaching is so critical. The workshop training is where they start to build the muscle memory, so to speak. But the coaching is where you can address all of the situations that occur after training, which is where everything really happens. And so, as you said, Brenda, it doesn't have to take an hour. A sales manager and rep can sit down for 10 minutes and focus on a very specific issue that will allow them to move the sales process forward.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this live today. I think this is a gap that most sales teams that are not getting adoption or of Sales Navigator have fallen short. When this program is rolled out like this and the coaching is consistent, that's the key. If the coaching isn't consistent, you're not going to get an optimized ROI on your investment. But when you have that consistent coaching where people can come in and ask about their specific situations, it's game changer. So, Stan, thanks for this conversation today.
This was awesome, as always.
It was awesome. And to all of you folks, if you are listening, if you are live, welcome. We're thrilled that you were here. We didn't get did we get any questions? No, we didn't get any questions today. You're always welcome to come on and ask some questions when we're live. If you have questions behind the scenes, you can join our library for free, where we have a community where you can ask questions at socialsaleslink.com/library. We have events all the time. We have a complimentary coaching once a month. Our next one is on our every third Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can go to socialsaleslink.com/events and join our free coaching. So if you have specific questions, we are here to answer. You can share your screen. Oh, we did get one message, and it's from a LinkedIn user. I don't know who this is. I will go back and take a look. It may be Regina Smith, I think. I'm looking on my phone. Excellent at coaching this way. I know from experience. I agree. It's got to be deal specific coaching. That is what works for sure. So join us, socialsaleslink.com/events. Stan, any closing remarks?
Just you can subscribe to our podcast, socialsaleslink.com/podcasts.
Oh, yes.
And listen to past episodes if you like.
I love that. And we are on Apple and iTunes. That is iTunes. It's all the Spotify, all those things.
All those guys.
Stan, thanks so much. I had a great time. Guys, when you are out and about, don't forget to make your sale